All right, folks, it's Bruce, the Epic Experiment, back another week, another deck tech. This one is going to be one that perhaps people don't get on board with. All right, so this one is Rukarumel, Biologist. So she is a 5-color commander, white, blue, black, red, green, legendary creature, human wizard. As Rukarumel enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Slivers you control and non-token creatures you control are the chosen type. Are the chosen type in addition to their other creature types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. And then 3 in a tap, create a 1/1 colorless sliver creature token. All right. So this is a typo deck. All right, and I built this to exploit Phyrexians through a unorthodox commander. So Rukarumel says, the most important part is, so when you choose a creature type, slivers you control and non-token creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other types. So any creatures that you cast that are not normally Phyrexians become Phyrexians thanks to Rukarumel. And so are slivers. So she's got an ability 3 in a tap, create a 1/1 colorless sliver creature token. I'm not really looking to use that ability. I'm looking to have everything in my deck be Phyrexian, so I can capitalize on having lots of Phyrexians. So that is the whole premise, and she's really quite a strange commander, but she's 5 colors. She allows you to play the full suite of Phyrexians that you want to run. Now, to partner along with her, we have Morifon the Boundless. So 7 colors mana for legendary creature shapeshifter. It's changeling, so this card is every creature type, including Phyrexian. And then as Morifon the Boundless enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. Well, Phyrexians. And then spells of the chosen type cost white, blue, black, red, green less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So you're going to choose Phyrexian. Rukarumel is going to make them Phyrexians, and away we go. Now, this deck being 5 colors, most important part is being able to hit all your colors. So you're going to notice down here at the bottom, I've got a lot of strange looking things. So I'm not going to lie here, folks. I have proxied this one out pretty hard because to make a 5-colored commander deck is a little bit difficult. Particularly to make a mana base that's going to work. So I've proxied fetch lands, and I've got proxies of some dual lands that people, are going to say, well, Bruce, you got a whole bunch of proxies. Yes, I do. And I don't play this deck very often. And before I play it, I always ask, is it okay if I play the proxies? Now, the lands are the only proxies in this deck. All the rest of the deck is legitimate cards. They're all the things that I have purchased, or acquired, or picked up. But this allows me to hit my mana so I can cast my spells. If I were to go back and rebuild this deck, would I build it with using maybe the Surveil lands, or put more of the Triomes? Absolutely. I've got some of the Triomes in here. I've got a bunch of other things, but those are what I've chosen to use as a way for me to make my colored mana in a way to satisfy all the mana pips in this particular deck. Now, I've also gone and got all sorts of ways to make that mana through ramp and other fixing ways. So, let's talk about the ramp package. I've got a Star Compass. So, 2 mana, artifact, Star Compass comes like tap, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any color basic land you control could produce. Well, I have enough basic lands that I could make any of the 5 colors, so it's a pretty useful way for me to do that. Phial of Galadriel, 3, legendary artifact. If you would draw a card while you have no cards in hand, draw 2 cards instead. If you would gain life while you have 5 or less life in life, gain twice that much life instead. And tap to add 1 mana of any color. I like that for sometimes this deck does run out of cards, and sometimes if you run out of cards, that's a handy tool. Chromatic Lantern, make sure that your lands all tap for whatever you need. We have an Arcane Signet. We have a Guardian Idol. So 2, Guardian Idol enters the battlefield tap to add colorless. 2 and a tap, Guardian Idol becomes a 2/2 Golem artifact creature until end of turn. And then we have an Ornithopter Paradise, which taps for a mana of any color. And we have a Sol Ring. So those are the artifact ramp. But I've also got a whole bunch of fixing in this list that is going to help me to make mana. So I've got a rampant growth. Search your library for a basic land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. All right, again, I have enough basics that I can do that. Sylvan Caryatid. Sylvan Caryatid is 2 and a green, defender with hexproof, tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and is a 0/3. We have a Farseek, so 1 and a green. It's a sorcery. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card to put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. The nice part about this will go and find anything that is land typed. So shocklands, triomes, dual lands, whatever you got. If they're dual typed, you can go and pull it. Sylvan Scrying, 1 and a green. Search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. That's any land card, put it in your hand, away we go. Then we have Generous Ent, Oliphant, Eagles of the North, and Troll of Khazad-dûm. All of these have land cycling on them, where you can go and tutor up a land typed card and put it into your hand. So these are an excellent way to help you fix for your mana. Yes, you pitch the creatures, but sometimes you got to do that. Nature's Lore, 1 and a green. Search your library for a forest card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Again, I have lots of forests. They are usually land typed with other things, but you can go and get them. And then we have Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, which is interesting because tokens you control have add a green. We'll talk about where that comes into play in a second, because you look at it and say, well, you don't have a ton of tokens. All right, not entirely true. Let's talk about how that's gonna play in. We'll set Jaheira right there. All right, what I wanted to do was play on the Phyrexian incubator tokens. So a lot of what I have is making incubation tokens. So, for instance, we have a great one here. Chrome Host Seed Shark, 2 and a blue, 2/4 flying Phyrexian Shark. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. So this is a great example. You cast instants and sorceries, and suddenly you start making these tokens that are 0/0s, but come with counters on them, and you can pay 2 mana to transform them into Phyrexian creatures. And the tokens, if you don't have the mana for them, Jaheira will let you use the tokens as a way to create more mana, to help you ramp out your deck. But then you can transform them into creatures and start, using them to attack your opponents. Glissa Sunslayer, 1 black green for a 3/3 with first strike death touch. It is a Phyrexian zombie elf. Whenever Glissa Sunslayer deals combat damage to a player, choose 1. You draw a card, you lose 1 life, destroy target enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. I really like this because this is very difficult to block because of the first strike and death touch. The Phyrexian means it probably catches a buff from something. It's just a really effective tool. We have Norn's Inquisitor, 1 and a white for a 1/1 Phyrexian Knight. When Norn's Inquisitor enters the battlefield, incubate 2. So you make a 0/0 incubate token and with 2+1/+1 counters on it. And you can pay 2 mana to transform it into a Phyrexian. Whenever a permanent you control transforms into a Phyrexian, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So when those tokens flip over, if the Inquisitor's on the battlefield, they pick up an extra counter. We have Glissa Herald of Predation, 3 black green for a 3/5 legendary creature Phyrexian zombie elf. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose 1, incubate 2 twice, transform all incubate tokens you control, or Phyrexians you control gain first strike and death touch until end of turn. So she's going to really reward you for having a whole bunch of incubate tokens that you can flip over. Phyrexian Censor, 2 and a white for a 3/3. Phyrexian Wizard. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-Phyrexian spell each turn. Non-Phyrexian creatures enter the battlefield tapped. So this is going to really delay your opponents and really slow them down. And if they don't have an easy, convenient way to destroy this is very frustrating for people to play against. So we have Etali, Primal Conqueror. So if you're familiar with Etali, so it's 7 mana, so 5 red for a 7/7 with tramples and Elder Dinosaur. When Etali Primal Conqueror enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. Etali is like a CEDH staple right now, a very powerful commander in a mono red list or a red green list. But you can spend 9 and a Phyrexian green to transform Etali, and turns into an 11/11 with infected, trample, and indestructible. So This is one of the few cases where I actually want to flip it over and turn it onto the back. But generally speaking, most people are only ever satisfied, only ever really want to play it for the front. Now, the fact that Rukarumel says that because it is not necessarily a Phyrexian inherently, then now it is. We have Brimaz, Blade of Oresco. So 2 white, black for a 3/4 Phyrexian cat, legendary creature. Whenever you cast a Phyrexian creature or artifact creature spell, incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. At the beginning of each end step, if a Phyrexian died under your control this turn, proliferate. It's going to make all sorts of those counters go wild. We have Elvish Vatkeeper, 1 black green for a 3/3. Phyrexian elf. Whenever Elvish Vatkeeper enters the battlefield, incubate 2. 5, and transform target incubator token you control, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So if you have a lot of mana, thanks to Jaheira, and or a lot of mana around floating around because of artifacts, then you can turn them, into Phyrexians that have twice the number of counters they would ordinarily have. Terror of Tawashi, so 2 black for a 4/3 Phyrexian ogre with Death Touch. Whenever Terror of Tawashi attacks, you may pay 3 and a black. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a Phyrexian in addition to his other types. Alright, so you can pay that to go bring back another creature, turn it into a Phyrexian. Moira and Tashar, 3 black-white for a 4/5 Phyrexian spirit bird. With flying, whenever you cast a historic spell, return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. So this is going to allow you to reuse things and put that whenever you cast a historic spell. And we have a Blight Titan. So 4 black for a 6/6 Phyrexian giant with Death Touch. Whenever Blight Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, mill 2 cards, then incubate X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Alright, so all those Phyrexians are super useful with Morophon and Rukarumel. Alright, and you're going to make a whole bunch of Phyrexian incubate tokens with them, but we've got other ways to do that. Oh, there's a few other things down here. So Grafted Butcher, 1 and a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Samurai. When Grafted Butcher enters the battlefield, Phyrexians you control gain menace until end of turn. Other Phyrexians you control get +1/+1. 3 and a black, sacrifice an artifact or creature, return Grafted Butcher from the graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, nice. We have Progenitor Exarch. So star X, and white for a 1/2 Phyrexian cat cleric. When Progenitor Exarch enters the battlefield, incubate 3x times. So if X is 1, I get incubate 3 1 time. So I get 1 3-powered incubate token. If I have 2, I get 2 of them at 3, and so on. And then I can tap it to transform incubator tokens you control. Alright, Glistening Dawn. So this now we're into sorceries that will do some of the same things. So 2 green, incubate X twice, where X is the number of lands you control. So if I have 5 lands, I make incubate 5, so 2 5/5 tokens. Alright, that seems pretty good to me. Phyrexian Scriptures, so 2 black for a saga. 1, put a +1/+1 counter up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Chapter 2, destroy all non-artifact creatures. 3, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. Alright, so we're going to have lots of Phyrexians that are going to be artifacts. So all your tokens, they are artifact creatures, and so they're not going to get wrathed away. Phyrexian Awakening, so 2 and a white for an enchantment. When Phyrexian Awakening enters the battlefield, incubate 4. Phyrexians you control have Vigilance. So now your Phyrexians have Vigilance. Gift of Completion, 1 and a black for an enchantment. When Gift of Completion enters the battlefield, incubate 3. Whenever a Phyrexian you control dies, surveil 1. Okay. We have this one. Tangled Skyline. So 5 and a green for enchantment. When Tangled Skyline enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life and incubate 5, and Phyrexians you control have Reach. Of all these enchantments, this is the one I like the most because usually it's the flying creatures that cause this deck the most difficulty because the Phyrexians don't usually fly. Then we have a Vanquisher's Banner. So 5 for an artifact. As Vanquisher's Banner enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. I'm picking Phyrexians. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. Well, thanks to Rukarumel, all my creatures in the deck that aren't necessarily Phyrexians are now Phyrexians. Okay, we have a Reflections of Lityara, 4 and a blue for an enchantment. As Reflections of Lityara enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. So if I cast a Phyrexian creature, I'm going to get an extra copy of it. And then Unnatural Growth, 1 green, 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 green. As an enchantment, at the beginning of each combat, double the number, power, and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. That's a great way for us to, make sure that our tokens are really big, really difficult to block, and make sure our opponents get smashed. All right, some of the other creatures that are in this deck that are not necessarily inherently Phyrexians, but are going to become Phyrexians thanks to Rukarumel. So, for instance, we have Karmic Guide. So 3 white for a 2/2 Angel Spirit, flying, protection from black, with Echo for 3 white. When Karmic Guide enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So because it's a Phyrexian, you're gonna get all the Phyrexian bonuses. You make maybe Reflection of Yara makes you make a copy of it, and you're gonna get to be able to pull 2 things out. It's gonna be a pretty useful tool for you. Lord Skitter, Sewer King, so 2 and a black for a 3/3. It is a rat noble. Whenever another rat enters the battlefield under your control, exile up to 1 target card from an opponent's graveyard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't attack. This is graveyard hate that I can use to make sure that my opponent's graveyards don't pop off and just generally draw some value from. Combustible Gearhulk is one of my favorite cards of all time. So 4 red for a 6/6 artifact creature construct. For a strike, when Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then Combustible Gearhulk deals damage to that player equal to the converted mana cost of those cards. This is an excellent card. I really enjoy playing it in most every opportunity I get because it's always so effective. We have a Mulldrifter. Enough said. Mulldrifter is pretty well known. We have a White Plume Adventurer, so 2 and a white for a 3/3 Orc Cleric. When White Plume Adventurer enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, untap a creature you control. If you complete a dungeon, untap all creatures you control instead. All right? So untap all my tokens and whatever else. We have a Boromir, Warden of the Tower. So 2 and a white for a 3/3 with Vigilance. It's a human soldier. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was casted, counter that spell. And then sacrifice Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn. The ring tempts you. Alright, that mostly is a protection spell, so I can protect my things from a board wipe. And then we have Aragorn the Uniter. So red, green, white, blue, legendary creature, human noble. Whenever you cast a white spell, create a 1/1 white human soldier token. Whenever you cast a blue spell, scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, Aragorn deals 3 damage to target opponent. Whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Many of my spells are multicolored, and you're going to have creatures of all 5 colors. You're going to do all sorts of good things with those things. Next, we're talking about some of the interaction that is going to make sure that I do not die. So, let's start with Rise of the Witch King. So 2 black, green for a sorcery. Each player sacrifices a creature. If you sacrifice a creature this way, you may return another permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is like a pretty nifty way to get something dead back into play. And edicting your opponents at the same time. So I'm a big fan of it. I really like it. I think it's a little bit underplayed. I think it's a very powerful effect. I have Counterspell. Enough said. I have Dismember. So target creature is -5 until end of turn. We have a Canker Bloom. So creatures that remove people's artifacts and enchantments are really, really powerful. So 1 and a green for a 3/2 Phyrexian Fungus. 1, sacrifice Canker Bloom, choose 1. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. Okay, yes please. We have an Ingot Chewer. Ingot Chewer, so 4 and a red for a 3/3, but it's got an evoke cost of a single red. When Ingot Chewer comes into play, destroy target artifact. Okay. We have a Foundation Breaker, which is similar. 3 and a green for a 2/2. Has an evoke cost of 1 and a green. When Foundation Breaker enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Okay. We have a Vandal Blast. We have an Assassin's Trophy. All right, some pretty good targeted removal here. We have a Source of Plowshares. Okay. We have an Arcane Denial. This is one people don't always like. I happen to like Arcane Denial because it presents a hard counter. We have a Surge of Salvation, which is a pretty fun one that is a single white instant. You and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. That is often the mode what I want most, but sometimes you get the second part, prevent all damage that black or red sources would deal to creatures you control this turn. So sometimes that's relevant, but usually it's give your things hexproof. And then last but not least, we have a Swiftfoot Boots. So collectively, all that is going to make sure that we're in the game, our stuff doesn't get destroyed, and we can interact with our opponents in an effective fashion. Down here, last but not least, we've got some other fun things that are going to be kind of handy to deal with. So we've got a Invasion of Chandalar. So 3 green. That's a siege. When Invasion of Chandalar enters the battlefield, return up to 3 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. So it's like a big regrowth effect, and then you go and give it to an opponent, and on the back you get Leyline Surge. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So that's going to be a really effective way to go and put something like an expensive Phyrexian into play for cheap, and it's going to be really good that way. We have a Creeping Renaissance. So 3 green for a sorcery. Choose a permanent type. Okay, Republican creature. But return all cards of the chosen type from your graveyard to your hand, and you can flash it back for 5 green. In the end, that's a very desperate play, but sometimes you need a little bit of protection. We have a Painful Truth. So 2 and a black with sorcery with Converge. You draw X cards, and you lose X life, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast Painful Truths. I really like this as a draw spell because pay 3, draw 3, lose 3 is a pretty effective rate to draw cards. We also have a Distant Melody, so 3 and a blue for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. This feels like I'm doing something wrong because I think this was originally in one of the original Lorwyn sets where, Kindred stuff was definitely a big deal, and they're suddenly running with Phyrexians feels like it's a bit of the wrong way to do it, but it's a good way. If you have a bunch of Phyrexian creature tokens on the battlefield, you draw a bunch of cards. We have a Kindred Discovery, so 3 blue with an enchantment. As Kindred Discovery enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So you're naming Phyrexians, and then you're attacking and drawing cards with Phyrexians. Yes, please. And then we have Greater Good. Greater Good, so 2 green with enchantment, sacrifice a creature, draw a card equal to the number to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. All right, so a lot of the Phyrexian tokens are going to have more than 3 counters on it, and you're just going to allow you to churn through your deck and draw a bunch of cards to keep your hand full. Last but not least, we have 2 board wipes. So Kindred Dominance is 5 black. Choose a creature type, presumably Phyrexian. Destroy all creatures that aren't of the chosen type. So you're going to catch somebody unawares and board wipe them, or you're going to have the Hour of Devastation. So 3 white. Hour of Revelation costs 3 less to cast if there are 10 or more non-land permanents on the battlefield. Destroy all non-land permanents. So that's a pretty hard set wipe. That's sort of like my emergency button that's going to blow everything up. The fact that there are 3 board wipes, so the Phyrexian Scriptures and these 2, is a little bit more than I usually would run. But because the Phyrexians tend to be slow, and we need to go and get tokens back onto the battlefield, it often requires some resetting up to get there. So it's a slower build, a slower grind. I would say this is probably like a bracket 2 to a bracket 3. There's not a lot of, I don't think there's any game changers in the list. It's mostly playing it pretty fair. The list looks expensive because of the dual lands. You don't need to play them. You can simply sub them all out. You can also replicate a similar effect with the fetch lands through other means like Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanses. So you don't have to play the pricey version that I've got. You could go and do this for quite a bit more inexpensively, which makes it appealing. But Rukarumel is a pretty underappreciated commander, very, very niche, and lots of people have never seen her. She's from a rather peculiar commander product where people don't know a lot about her. but I think she makes for a really interesting commander and an interesting take on a 5-color Phyrexian build. All right, that's the list. You want to check it down below? It's down in the show notes. You can go see it for yourself. If you want to check out any other deck lists that we have here, you can go find they're all posted here in the channel, along with the links on Moxfield. You can find anything that I've brewed up here. They all get put to Moxfield, so you can see them all, and lots more that never see the light of day. If you like what you hear, by all means, please like and subscribe. We are slowly seeing some traction and some people starting to get on board with the channel. Hopefully it starts to lead to more people so we can do some cool stuff. We're looking at maybe some giveaways or some other things, but we need people to be watching, right? So we can do giveaways. Last but not least, if you like what you hear, our podcast is up, and you can go check the link to go listen to our podcast and our thoughts about all things Commander coming up. We've got some neat new ideas and some partnerships with some other people that we're excited about. So hopefully they'll start to come to fruition here in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, that's it. That's all for me. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. Talk to you again soon. Peace.